In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how you can make a speech-to-text desktop application, all in Python and PyQt. But that's not all. I'm going to show you how we can take your spoken text and get the sentiment value of your text. Is your spoken text positive, neutral, or negative? And we want to display that into our app. And finally, how can we save your spoken note as a text file to our desktop? And you're going to learn all of this in, 20 minutes? I'm going to put that right here. That's how long it's going to take you to build your very own speech-to-text desktop application, all in Python. Guys, before I dive into the episode, if you're here and you're ready to learn and you're new here, do me a favor, hit the like button and smash the subscribe button. That helps me as a small channel grow and reach more students around the world. Are you ready? Because I'm ready. The question really is though, is he ready? Champ, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of, wait, you guessed it, Code with Josh. And for the most obvious reasons, I'm Josh. Guys, I know how cumbersome learning programming is. That's why I spent a lot of time making a Python and Git starter pack, completely handcrafted, that I give to all my students on their first day of class. And I'm giving to you absolutely free. It's the first link in the description. Head on down there and get your free copy of my handcrafted Python and Git starter pack to use in your Python journey. Now, if you've missed the first 2 episodes of my Python GUI series, I'm going to link the videos here, right? We learned how to build a translator app, how to build a weather API app, and this is going to be the 3rd and the final installment for now of my Python GUI series. And today, you heard it right. You're going to learn how to make a speech recognition app that we can get the sentiment from and save that as a note. Now, this isn't a PyQt tutorial. You're going to learn PyQt. But the purpose of these videos is to show you guys that we can bring your ideas to life with PyQt. Whatever you envision, you can create. All right, let's head over to VS Code and let's bring this app to life. All right, let's head down to your terminal. The first thing we need to get PyQt. Run this line to get PyQt. And next up, we need to get TextBlob. Run this to install TextBlob. And then finally, we need to get speech recognition. You can run this in your terminal. Now, we won't use TextBlob or speech recognition till later, but let's install it now. Okay, let's set up our fundamental application. Now that we have those installed, I'm going to tap into my PyQt framework, and I'm going to go into the module PyQt widgets. We want to import 2 things, QApplication and QWidget. Now, these 2 are needed to build an application. Everything else is optional. We import based on what we need. What else are we going to need for this app? Well, I'm going to import here. Here are the others that I'm going to use. So QLabel, PushButton, QVBox, TextEdit, and QFile dialog. I'll talk about each of these widgets as we implement them into our project. This is really all we need right now to get it going. So I'm going to come down here and create our main class. I'm going to call it Speech, and I'm going to inherit a QWidget. Now, by inheriting a QWidget, this is the main window of your application. Now we can construct what our UI is going to look like. So down here, let's create our initializer. I'm going to inherit my superclass, which is QWidget. Let's make sure we spell super correctly. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make all the methods that I am going to build at some point. So I'm going to have one called initUI. This will be the UI. I'm going to put a few more here. All right, for the time being, I have all my methods built. Now they're empty, but I have one for UI, for my settings, for my events. And then we have some custom ones. I have one that I'm going to use to get the speech, as well as the sentiment, and then our 2 button clicks. Now that we have those methods, let's just execute the application, get the window running. So down here at the bottom, let's write the famous statement. I'm going to say if name in string main. Then we can create an app. This is our Q application that takes an empty list. I'm going to create a main window. This is equal to our class. I can show my main window, and then I can take my app and I can execute my app. Let's run the code. Guys, quick PSA announcement. If you're enjoying today's video, do me a favor, hit that like and smash the subscribe button, as that helps me reach more students and I know you're learning something. All right, back to the video. All right, we're ready to go. A blank window let's add to it. Let's go up here to start with my settings. I'm going to give my app a title. So set window title. I'm using self because I'm referring to myself. Because we inherited the Q widget, I can refer to self, which applies to the Q widget window. Let's call this guest speaker. That's what I want to call it. And then I'm going to set the geometry. So where do I want my app to appear? X position and Y position of 250. I'd like my app to be 300 in width and 500 in height. Now that I have the initial settings, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to call that method. Okay, before I run the app again, let's create the UI. What's your app going to look like? This is important. Don't get carried away with styling now. Let's just get a functioning app. At the end of this, I'm going to show you how we can implement CSS into Python to style our projects. For our application's UI, I'm going to create here a title, which is going to be text, so Q label. We can call this here, I'm going to call this guest speaker. I need to create a place that is going to be like to output the text. After I speak, where is it going to appear? It's going to appear in this box, which is called a Q text edit. I'll show you that in a second. All right, now that we have the output box, I am going to create the sentiment text. This can be a Q label. And for now, it's going to say sentiment. Moving on, we need two buttons. I'm going to need a submit button, so Q push button. In here, I can say speak now, that's fine. And then in here, I'm going to create a save button. Let's just call it save. This can be a Q push button, and I'm going to call this save note. I've created 5 different objects. Now, if you run your code, it's not going to be on there for multiple reasons. Now we need to take our objects and add them to a design, or more importantly, a layout. Do we want to keep this in a column or a row? It's up to you. I'm going to do a column. That's why I imported QVBox. I'm going to say master, and that's the name of my layout. It's the master layout, the parent layout. And I'm going to use the method addWidget. addWidget allows us to take an object and put it into a layout in PyQt. What do I want to add at the top? Well, I want my title to be at the top. And I want to give my title alignment, which I'll touch on here in a minute. Let's add the rest of our objects. Here I've added everything to my column, my layout. Now I need to take this column and I need to add it to the Q widget. The last thing we have to do is I'm going to take myself, which is the Q widget, and I'm going to say I want to set the final layout to become my master. All we need to do now is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say self init UI, that's the name of the method, and call it. Let's run our application. Boom, and there you go. That's a good starting template. I'm going to align everything real quick, and then let's get into the code. To apply alignment into PyQt, I'm going to come up here and say from PyQt5.qtCore. QtCore has something called Qt. Qt deals with alignment or styling. I can come in here in my add widget, and I'm going to say alignment equals Qt.align center. That's going to put my text in the center of the screen. Let's copy that and paste that. Alright, now everything's aligned. We can now move on to some functionality. Alright, so more specifically, our speech and our sentiment. If you want to run it and take a look, you can. Now everything's ready to go. Let's get into our speech. Alright, I'm going to head down now to my getSpeech method, right? Because the objective of this app is to speak. Take that speech, put it on the screen of my app, and then get the sentiment of it. And so I have to start with recording the speech. So inside speech, I'm going to go to the top first, okay? And I'm going to import what we installed, speech recognition, that's too long. I'm going to give it a nickname of SR. Going down now to our getSpeech app, I'm going to tap in here. I need to create a listener. I like to call it that, so I'm going to tap into recognizer. That's from our import right there. This is like a person who's listening to us speak. Think of it that way. Now that we have a person to listen to, okay, I know I'm going to create text, but right now it's empty, so I'm just going to make an empty string. Now that I have a listener and text, we want to try to do something. So I'm going to say with my computer microphone as my main source, I would like to try to create audio from the microphone. So my listener is going to be listening to what? My microphone, which I called source. That's the name of my microphone. Then, from this audio, we also want to create text. I'm going to have my listener use something called recognize Google, and it's going to use my audio. Okay, so it can use Google and it can use the words from Google to match with our audio to find those words. That's pretty cool. Okay, now up here with my audio, I also want it to quit listening. Now this caused me a lot of problems the other day, so I'm going to put something called timeout, so it automatically quits listening after 2 seconds and it processes it much smoother. Now that we have audio and we have text, okay, I'm going to print off that text as a quick check, and I'm going to put some exceptions. You can see I've just dropped in these 3 exceptions. Now these first 2 actually come from the speech recognition module and they deal with Google. Okay, and the last one is all other exceptions, right? It's good to have these here and you can catch it if there's something wrong with your project. Great, our get speech method is pretty much done. Now I want to return this text, but when I reset the app, it caused me problems. So I need to create a property to store the text in and then return the text. So I'm going to call this recognize text. Okay, that's equal to the text that we created, and then I can return that text. Now I created this, so initially, let's just go up here and I'm going to create a property called recognize text, and that value is going to be an empty string right now. We can change that later. All right, your get speech method is done. Let's not worry about the sentiment right now. Let's just get your speech and put it on the screen, see it work. I'm going to come down here to my button clicked method. All right, and for now, I'm going to change this later, but I'm going to create a result and I'm going to call my get speech method. This is going to return my spoken text, right? And then I'm going to take my output box and I would like to say set plain text. What do I want the text to be in the output box? Well, I want it to be my response, what I got from my speech. As a quick test here, I'm going to go up here to my connects and I'm going to say self.submit. When that's clicked, I would like to connect to my button clicked method. Make sure that connects is also being called inside init. All right, give your app a quick run. You're going to click the speak now button, speak, and then stop speaking. It's going to output it on the screen. Let's try. Welcome to my app. Look at that. Look at that. That works so well. All right, let's continue on with the sentiment. Up here, I'm going to import something. So I'm going to say from text blob, import the class text blob. Now, if you like speech sentiment, let me know in the comments below. If you want more of this stuff, I can introduce you to more modules and more libraries for this. Now that we have text blob imported, I'm going to come down here to my get sentiment method. Now, I'm going to give this method text to analyze. Okay, that text is whatever we speak. And I need to make sure that I have text. So I'm going to do a few things that as I was working through this, I got a lot of errors, right? So I'm working through this in a way that allowed me to resolve those errors by debugging. So if my text is valid, if I have text here, then I want to try to do something. I'm going to try and create a response from text blob. And text blob takes a string. So I'm going to give it the text. Make sure it's equals. I can create a quick exception, and I'll just say exception as E. If there's an error, print it off. All right, so I have a response. Now this response is actually going to give us 2 things back. It's going to give us something called polarity and subjectivity. What I'm interested in, well, they're both interesting, is polarity though. I can say if my response.sentiment.polarity. Okay, so if my polarity is greater than 0.3, I want to do something. How polarity works, all right, so it's a float number. If it's a positive number, you've said something positive. If it's 0, it's neutral, like, how are you? If you say anything bad, it's going to be a negative float number. Right? And so the polarity, if it's greater than 0.3, I'm just adjusting for some compensation there. That's going to be a positive thing. So I'm going to return positive. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say elif res sentiment. Polarity is less than negative 0.3. Let's return negative. Else, return neutral. If none of those work, I'm going to come out here as a catch statement and I'm just going to say return none. Okay, so here's your sentiment all done, all right? It's going to analyze your text. It's going to tell you, is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? Otherwise, it's returning none. Make sure that's in the function. Where should these be? These should also be in the initial if. Okay, much better. All right, let's connect everything and see it in action. I'm gonna come down here to my button click method and I need to change a few things. So I have my response from the speech. I'm gonna create one called sentiment equals my method and I'm giving it text, right? Text is my spoken response. So I have these two responses from these two functions, speech and sentiment. Make sure that they're not empty. So if res and sentiment is not none, then we want to do something. I want to put this inside because I do want that to occur. And then I also want to put the text of my sentiment on my screen. So I'm going to tap in there and use the set text method to additionally add a string of sentiment. Polarity is a float. You need to convert that to a string, right? So this is really it. This is all, and we're done. All right, run the app again. You could try it, all right? I'm going to go one step further and I'm going to implement the save click method now and then run the app. Now that pretty much everything is working, I want to have the ability to click the save button and save my spoken text as a note to my desktop. So inside here, let's do some things. I'm going to create the content that I want to save, and I want to save the output box, but I want to save the text. So convert that to plain text. Then I'm going to create something. So I'm going to call this file path. I actually need two variables, and the second one can be blank. And I'm going to tap into what we imported earlier of Txt File dialog. Now really, this is like a mini window that's going to pop up on your screen. And if you're in a Windows, it's going to be a Windows window. If you're in a Mac, it's going to be a Mac window. You can type the name of your file and save it to the desktop. So Txt File dialog, and I'm going to tap in here and use get save file name. Terrible English, I get it. But where do I want the window to appear? On myself. So I want it to appear on my screen. And I'm going to put in a few other arguments here. The name of the window and the type of extensions accepted, and then the name of it. You can see the name of the window, I will be giving it text, and then it's going to be saved as either a text file or some other type of file. If the file path is true, which means I gave a name for it, I'm going to say with open, I would like to open something, and we're going to call it the file path, which is the name that you assigned it. I would like to write in this, and I'm going to nickname it file. File, I would like to write inside of you. Well, spell write correctly, or you're not going to be writing very much, are you? What do I want to write inside of you? I want to write the content that I just created. Content. Done. Right there. Final step, go up to your connects. Inside connects, you're going to say self, save. When that's clicked, you would like to connect to your save clicked. Is that it? Save clicked? Save clicked. That's it. Run the app. All right, let's click speak now and test it. Is my app working? Are we done with this project? Run it, run it, run it. Look at that, that's incredible. The sentiment is neutral, right? I didn't say anything positive or negative. Let me try again for you. It is such a beautiful and wonderful day. That's positive, look at that. That was a positive thing I said. Let me save that note. Click the save note. You can see this little window pop up. That's a Mac. Save as what? My note. Where? I'm gonna save it on my desktop as a text file. Save. Let me go find that. If I open that note, that's a text file on my desktop. That's so great, guys. That is amazing. Now, your app is ugly. I get it. It's really ugly. Mine's ugly. Let me show you how to add some styling into our applications. The first thing I'm going to do, come up here, I'm going to say from PyQt5.qt GUI, I would like to import QFont. This is going to allow us to style the fonts in PyQt. Now this is just one of the ways. I'm going to actually show you two ways to apply styling. You can import from PyQt or you can use CSS. Let's start with the PyQt one. Now that I have QFont, I'm going to come down here and I want to apply this to my title. So I'm going to take my title and I'm going to use set font. Inside set font, let's give it a class, set font, QFont. What font style do I want to use here? So I'm going to use one I have been using in my other projects, Myanmar, MN. Okay, what font size? I want this to be a 35. That's it. That's done. If you run the code, you can see the font has changed. That's pretty cool. All right, let me apply some CSS styling now. Closing out my app, I'm going to actually paste in here most of what I was working with earlier. Here's the styles I was working with. I'm using a method called setStyleSheet, and all of this is really a string, okay? Now, I am targeting the classes QWidget, QPushButton. These are all those classes we imported. So anything using this class is going to take the styles I give it. It's just like HTML and CSS, right? So the QWidget is my main window. That's going to have a background color of this. All the buttons will have a background color of this. When the button is hovered on, it's going to change color. Right, let's run this code. Wow, hover on the buttons. I think that looks really, really cool. All right, now you might be asking, Josh, I've worked with CSS, or maybe you haven't. CSS has things called classes and IDs, and they allow you to target more specific items. Like for example, this text is a Q label, the title is a Q label, but I don't want to affect both of those, and I don't want to use Q font every time. How can I target just one of my Q labels? We can create an ID for these in PyQt. Let me show you how. So that text I had was my sentiment text, and I don't want to use this like I did. That's annoying. I want to apply color or other styles to it. So I'm actually going to come down here with my other styles. I'm going to take my object name, so self.sentimentText, and I'm going to use a new method called setObjectName. What name do I want to give this? I'm going to call it sentiment label as one. Now this string is the ID name for this object now. So in my styling, if I go down to my styles, under Q label, I want to affect a Q label, but I want to give it an ID, sentiment label. Now I am only affecting objects that have my ID of sentiment label. Let me post in some styling here. All right, there's some font size, font family, color, font weight, run the code. Wow, I would say our app looks really good. The final test is to run it. Let's try speaking now. You now have a working speech recognition application. Well done, guys. Look at that. You have text and a sentiment value for your application. You can save that note too, all in today's video. Wow, look at that. You now have a working recognition app. Your sentiment is neutral. Speak, save note. Guys, that's amazing. You now have a third working desktop application here on Code with Josh. But this one was a speech recognition and sentiment application. If you want to try making, well, a translator app, there, I'm going to link it. If you want to try making a weather application, I'm going to link it there. You now have 3 Python apps to add into that portfolio. That's amazing. Guys, if you want this broken down to a level you understand more, and I break down PyQt and I give you 4 capstone projects, check out the courses I have available to you in the link in the description. I have 3 Python courses dedicated at growing you and transforming you as a developer. And one of those is a course all on PyQt, where I introduce to you not just PyQt, but SQL, Matplotlib, and Pill, which allows us to edit photos in Python. If you're interested in that, check that out in the description, as well as you can get my handcrafted Python and Get Starter Pack. Absolutely free. That's the first one in the description. Head on down there and check that out. If you enjoyed today's video or you learned absolutely anything, smash that subscribe button, guys, please, as that really does help me grow as a channel. Hit the like button, comment, subscribe. That allows me to reach more students around the world. Well, guys, I'm so happy you stayed for this episode, and I hope that you enjoyed what I'm here making for you. Until next time, I will see you guys in the next episode of Code with Josh. Until then.